Hey, what's going on, guys? Zedd here, bringing you another Soul Calibur 6 video. My last video was my current thoughts on the Season 2 tier list, but of course, that one is ever changing. Today's video is going to be one that I actually haven't done before, and the reason why is because I didn't know enough about so many different characters to do it. But today we're going to do the Xianghua matchup tier list, at least my Xianghua matchup tier list. Now, these ones don't really change as much as, say, the actual tier list, because when you find new tech with a character, that doesn't necessarily make a matchup better per se, right? So this, I'm very confident in my list that I'm going to give you guys today, and I will explain why she's good or why she's bad into these various characters and point out some key details where I can, to try to be as authentic as possible. Um, with that said, though, I do have a bit of a there is going to be a little bit of bias and opinion kind of thrown in here. And the reason why is because I feel like there's a lot of potential that Xianghua has that a lot of other Xianghuas don't really exploit. And there's a lot of defensive aspects of Soul Calibur that, again, a lot of players don't exploit, at least as a on the grand scale of things, right? Um, it sounds vague, I know, but we'll get into it and I'll do my best to explain my reasons why people are the way they are. So, and for the record, they will not be in order. So if it's in the same tier, they're all the same number ratio. Okay. Last thing, real quick, is I do not think there's such thing as a 3-7 in Soul Calibur. The game is really well balanced. I think that every matchup is playable. And so yeah, just preface that. So 6.5 to 3.5 is the best it can get, and 3.5 to 6.5 is the worst. And in case you're unaware of how this works, basically that means the first number is the Xianghua, and the second number is the opponent, and who it's favored in terms of 10 games, right? So if it's 5-5, it's they're going to win 5 games apiece. It's 50-50. Okay. So anyway, with that intro out of the way, sorry I was a bit long-winded. Let's get right into it. So first off, obviously the X mirror is even. Now, it's funny. I actually think that the Xianghua mirror is 4-6 for both players because neither of you are ever allowed to use strings or auto GIs because the auto GIs being -12 and -14, you're literally going to get CE'd every single time, and you don't want to mess up. Basically, the game comes down to who can use Xianghua's good buttons the best and who isn't going to get auto GI'd by the other one. So I think it's a really stupid mirror. I hate it so much, but technically it's a mirror, so it's a 5-5, right? I feel like we don't need to say much on that. So let's get right into it here. So for the first tier, I have Amy, Maxi. Oh, and for the record too, just because a character is good doesn't mean the matchup's going to be good or bad. Um, you try not to factor in tier lists when you're making matchup videos, okay? Nightmare, Cassandra, and where is he? Grow. So these 5 characters, I think, are Xianghua's best matchups. Now, of course, most of these characters are quite good. So let's get into it. So first up, Amy. Amy, the reason why I think this is favored for Xianghua is because pre-Rose Amy, Xianghua just absolutely dumpsters Amy in terms of damage, pokes, speed, counterplay, combos, Oki, everything. Um, the thing with the thing with Amy is that if you know how to counterplay her unrosed version, um, and you pair that with the fact that Xianghua has some very unique Amy counterplay tools, it can be a really easy time. So, for example, um, I don't think there's a character that can deal with AMS transitions as well as Xianghua. No, I second that. There is no character who can deal with it as well as Xianghua. You can literally crouch throw every AMS transition on block, unless she does raw AMS into throw or raw AMS into parry. Those are her only options. So you are relegating the Amy to almost wasting the AMS and going on from there. So there's that, and that's because of the I-10 crouch throw that Xianghua has. The second thing is that, of course, Amy's verticals are quite good, so we have the auto GIs for that. The parries. The parry systems can actually be completely OS'd. by good movement and 2A plus B, or good movement and crouch throw, or in the case of middle parry, it's very likely that the Amy is going to go middle parry AK. So if you see middle parry, you can just use the auto GIs. Like the risk for Amy pressuring Xianghua with her offense is just way higher in this matchup. Now, don't get me wrong, that goes for most characters against Xianghua, but with the way that Amy's offense functions, that's even more so the case. The other thing to consider is that a lot of characters challenge Amy with mids or Hori mids. Xianghua doesn't really have a fast Hori mid, so generally we're using highs. So it's actually highs or lows with 3A, right? So generally it's better for the Amy to start flexing high parry, and it is so much better for you if the Amy is forced to use high parry as opposed to middle parry. Okay, so to summarize that, I think that Xianghua just has a lot of counter Amy tools that a lot of characters just don't have access to. And unrosed version and even red rose version, I still think Xianghua, in the matchup anyway, comes out on top. Once Amy gets red roses, though, it becomes a 6-4, but it is definitely still in Xianghua's favor. And white roses, I mean, really, what are those? Maxi, this matchup is like borderline free. Now, in season one, this was easily a 7-3. Like, no way. But now, of course, with Heaven's Guard, there's a little more to consider. So you have to play around that a little bit more now, or his parries more now, rather. The reason why this matchup is heavily in Xianghua's favor is, again, the auto GIs. Maxi's best buttons are verticals, but and they're very difficult to step for a lot of the cast, or you have to memorize which direction is which. But Xianghua doesn't have to do that. There are times where I can 6A plus B, I can jump over a low, beat the vertical, beat out the horizontal, and then I only really lose to the kick. Or, you know, if I wait half a second, not quite, but if I wait a moment and then 6A plus B, I'm going to catch all the follow-ups, beat PSL, beat neutral guard. Like it 6A plus B trashes this matchup. And Xianghua does have access to sidestep tech crouching moves, multiple, might I add, so that also really helps her deal with his stances. So the risk reward for Maxi is already kind of skewed, but against Xianghua, it's even more skewed. And so you're also forcing the Maxi to use a lot of his kick options as they beat the auto GIs. And if you're forcing Maxi to use the kick options out of stance, well, he's not really continuing his pressure, or if he is using them, they are all either highs or mid verticals. And so you can step them or duck them if you know which ones come out of which stances. And the low kick options are all very slow, out of back lower, and whatever the other one is where he goes low with a double hit. So this matchup is hella good for Xianghua. So if you're crying over Maxi in Season 2, pick up a Xianghua and have a conversation with me in the comments, and I can tell you why this matchup is a dumpster fire for Maxi. Nightmare, this one actually I had to really decide between 6.5 to 3.5 or 6 to 4. But I actually think it's very good for Xianghua. Now, the reasons why are plain and simply auto GIs. Again, you're going to see that as a trend here. They can completely delete some of his string options and transitions. The other thing is the fact that Xianghua has an I-12 CE. Nightmare is relegated to so few buttons because of it. Otherwise, he's just going to get deleted. Also, although the tech is niche, Xianghua can use 2-2A against an armor move, make him proc armor, and then use CE, and she actually beats out the armor because of the iframes of CE, and she gets a literal free CE. So 2-2A is a horizontal mid. It's very stubby. It's -2. So it's actually just hella good anyway against slower characters. So it's a move I use a lot against characters like Siegfried, Nightmare, Astaroth. And so Nightmare definitely does not want to be flexing armor against the Xianghua in his face if the Xianghua knows about the tech, knows how it works, and can execute it. So I think this matchup's hella good. Yeah, it's just really good, in my opinion, for Xianghua. Cassandra is, again, auto jazz. So the best buttons that she has are verticals. And stagger pressure is kind of the name of the game, right? So if you're flexing 6A plus B, it's a horizontal mid into a vertical mid, and it's -14. Auto frames 4 to 12. you can literally stuff her stagger pressure as well as beat the follow-up at the same time for very little risk, that being minus 14. The other thing is you can actually um, completely delete some string options. With a bit of practice, you can actually delete the 5B series altogether. You can do against 5BB, 5B hold, and 5BK, you can twitch duck 6A plus B. You will automatically block the 5BB, you will duck the 5BK, and you'll auto GI the 5B hold. It's incredibly tricky at first, but once you kind of get the hang of it, it's very much doable offline, at least. The other thing, too, is I think Cassandra just can't really contest Xianghua up close. I don't think she beats her in terms of a good frame game. Sure, Cassandra does more guard damage and like more damage consistently, especially with Divine Force. But I just don't think that it's enough. And her horizontal game it's there, but it's not enough to really justify it. And let me put it to you this way. If as a Xianghua, if you're forcing a Cassandra to stop using her verticals, that's already a win. She's already playing into an uphill battle at that point, right? So I think this matchup is hella good. Um, yeah, that's kind of all there is to it. Grow Grow or Xianghua kind of just makes Grow be the most basic, bland, boring character, and it gets to a point where it's like, why would I play Grow into Xianghua when I can play any other character with neutral and fundamentals into Xianghua? The main reason why is that she has a 10 frame 5AA and a 12 frame CE. So in this case, it actually has nothing to do with the auto GIs, and it has everything to do with her I-10. So you can stuff every Grow transition into AVG except for two of them. Um, and even then, those two are very slow, so you can deal with them accordingly, or he's risking a lot by even using them in the first place. The other thing is that Xianghua can actually handle Grow's approach very well. So Grow's approach is either a high horizontal into a mid horizontal, right? Or high horizontal into mid vertical, or double mid vertical, or double high horizontal. Like it's always step duckable. And so Xianghua has 2-2A, 1B plus K, and 2-2A plus B. That one's my favorite. She can literally 2-2A plus B grows neutral the entire game long, and then stuff all of his stance transitions, some of them even on hit, um, and it beats out everything. And then his soul charge, he has a string that sets up a force block or tech trap situation. And Xianghua can actually just get out of it because she's really small, as well as Crybaby also gets rid of his Soul Charge Oki. And with the Soul Charge teleports, 90% of the time, if you're stepping and you kind of not buffer in, but you're ready to hit 228B or 882B, you can actually completely delete the teleports altogether. Or if you want to go for bigger reward, more risk, you can do 22A plus B. That way you tech crouch the teleport A as well. And again, completely deletes the teleporting altogether, and you don't even have to fuss with the step ducking aspect of the tech. So she just has a lot of stuff to handle Grow. Grow isn't really that complicated, so if you can take away what makes him special, he's not special, right? So again, I think this matchup's hella good for Xianghua. And that's actually it for this 6.5 to 3.5. Moving on to the 6.4s, we have Astaroth, Talim, Zas, 2B, and Yoshi. Yoshi. Here. Okay, so again, 5 characters. So far, we're at 10 characters in Xianghua's favor, which is pretty good. We're already at almost half the cast, so this is a good thing. Astaroth is... So, personally, I hate this matchup. I hate it so much, but I know the truth on paper is that it is in Xianghua's favor. Now, previously, I used to think that this was in Astaroth's favor, and the reasons why I thought that were that his bull rushes, being tech crouches, were a big deal, and uh, that was true until I kind of learned how to play around them a little bit better. Started using more 2A and disrespecting the armor, because if I 2A into the armor, whatever, not a big deal, and even 2K. So I started getting a little bit better about handling it. In general, you just outspeed Astaroth and hope that you break the grabs he does get, and you're pretty much good to go. A lot of his stuff is auto-GIable as well if you are aware of it. Some of them are not blatantly obvious. and that just requires a bit of lab work, and some are quite tight. But again, a bit of lab work. The biggest thing that keeps him relevant in this matchup, and the only reason why I didn't put him up in the tier above, is because of BA. So BA, if you don't know, is a new move that he got in Season 2, where he swings the axe down, just a standard 5B, and the A, basically, he swings it to the left or to the right. It doesn't really matter what direction he does it, but he does. And so that is a vertical mid, horizontal high. The problem is it doesn't jail, but it jails just enough that you have to take it, and if you unblock, you get hit by it. So you can't even squeeze in a 5B plus K as Xianghua, which would in theory tech crouch the A because it tech crouches immediately on input, but it doesn't. So that move can keep Xianghua out the entire game, and it sucks. It really sucks. But past that, he doesn't have much to keep to deal with her. And even moves like 2-2B, if you're looking for Astaros 2-2B, you can 100% auto GI it on reaction. Like you have to understand that that's the only real threatening move he has to keep you out at all ranges. So if you can just learn to deal with it and react to it, you're laughing. But BA is a relevant tool, and it can be hella annoying and difficult for Xianghua to deal with. Um, so that's what makes it 6-4 as opposed to the tier above. Talim, again, I hate this matchup. I hate this character. I think Talim is so stupid. I wish she wasn't in the game. And I hate this character and everything about her. But I do still think it's Xianghua favorite. The auto GI is a little bit of a factor, but she actually has a ton of tools to deal with Talim's offense. So, again, tech crouching sidestep buttons, huge. 4A and 4-4B for Xianghua, huge. I12CE can stuff all options on about approximately half the transitions. Huge. She has an auto GI, so when Talim goes to CE, you can actually flex 4A, and you'll catch every single option other than Wind Charmer B or Wind Charmer K. Every single other option loses to 4A, including parrying the last CE hit. So just having that tech present is a big deal because it forces the Talim to make a decision, assuming she's aware of that, and you know that's going to be her decision, in which case it opens up 2A or CE, right? So it's a very unique option because there are characters with auto parries, but they would lose to something like Wind Fury B or Wind Salt A plus B. Like they're going to lose to these faster buttons, right? Whereas 4A doesn't. Right, so that's the beauty of it. And in general, I think that if Xianghua plays a defensive game, she can actually handle Talim really well. A lot of Talim's best mid-range tools and guard damage tools are all verticals, so you can just 6A plus B those all day. And because of Xianghua's size, you can actually take the 5AA string, AA, B, B, hold, which goes into Wind Fury. And on hit, you can actually step to Talim's right, crouch, and you'll completely avoid every single option on hit and get a free punish. And if she goes into Wind Charmer, it's a free 2A. So Xianghua is just built to fall out of Talim's combos, which is hilarious. And so that on top of the super awesome moves she has to deal with Talim in general, put her at a 6-4. Zas, like again, auto jazz. The auto jazz busts this character. You'll notice a trend with this tier list. If you don't know how to use Xianghua's auto jazz, majority of these matchups are going to be 5-5 for you or 4-6, right? It's about learning why, when, and how, and that's going to make these matchups super, super easy for you. Okay, so Zas is a very basic character at the end of the day, in terms of like what you're going to see on offense. But Xianghua's existence can completely delete two of his best tools, and that is 6A and 3A. 3A, you can twitch duck the K and stand up in time and block the B, or react and 6A plus B the B hold. That's huge. Like 3A B hold is a huge strength for Zas, and Xianghua deletes it, and you can absolutely do it on reaction, 100%. And so that's huge. And then 6AB, auto GIable. 6AA, auto GIable. Now, granted, you can just regular GI them, of course, but you're not going to get the same reward, right? The other thing, too, is that a lot of Xianghua's best moves, or rather up close fast moves, are highs. And some characters, they don't really have good highs, whereas Xianghua does. And so Curseless CE loses a lot more value against Xianghua because of the fact that her 5AA is I-10 and that her 4B is a bit of a stagger pressure tool and 6A is a really good step catcher. So there's that. The other thing is that Crybaby is the thing, and so Zasalamel can combo into a back turn mix-up Vortex, and Xianghua can just come right out of it with Crybaby, and there's nothing he can do about it, even on hit. So that's a big deal too. So you're omitting a lot of Zaz's strengths in general, and that's just a really big deal. Of course, Zaz is still Zaz, right? He's still a pretty solid character. He controls the entire map, and you don't want to challenge him at ring edge. Like, yeah, I know that stuff is still there, but Xianghua has a ton of counterplay to Zaz Lamel. That's what makes it a good matchup. But it's still going to be a hard fought matchup, but it's a good matchup for Xianghua. 2B. 2B is another character that I just hate so much. But the three main factors here are actually not the auto GIs. I barely use them against 2B, but there are some times. It's more the fact that you can crouch throw AGS transitions on block, except for I think two of them, one or two of them, and it's going to force her to use bubble. And so if you know that and she knows that, then you're going to end up seeing the bubble more, which is, if it's a fast bubble, is CE punishable. And if it's not, then you can take your turn. The other thing is that the auto GIs work against her neutral strings, which, I mean, I don't think they're very good anyway, but you're never going to see them against, or as 2B, rather as Xianghua against 2B. And then her neutral game. Her neutral game, I think, is awful, but it's the fact that everything and its mother are anywhere from -12 to -18, and so it's just like CEs and 3Bs all over the place. And so 2B has to just play a stance game into you, which is, I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Like I said, we have crouch throw, we have I-12 CE, and that's pretty good to deal with the stances. Xianghua also can actually reach aerial leap with just a raw 5B, which is actually pretty unique. Some characters have a hella hard time reaching her up in the air, as Xianghua does too, but raw 5B clips her down, which is a big deal. The other thing with AL is if she just goes for the transition or she goes to do like off of 3B or 3B hold, 5A trades or beats every single option, with the sole exception of B plus K while in the air, in which time she'd be spinning so much that you're going to recover fast enough, even if you do 5AA before she can CE. Like it even beats the aerial leap A plus B, the aerial leap B, the aerial leap kicks. It doesn't matter. 5A trades or beats everything. So that's huge, and that's because it's I-10. Right. So Xianghua has the tools to just destroy 2B with any mistake she makes. And then the other thing is Soul Charge Oki is less relevant because Crybaby's a thing. Because you can Crybaby, cancel her out of her AGS stance, and the only option to beat Crybaby is Bubble. Again, if you know that and she knows that, you've added this layer to the mind game that no other character can do. Right? So you're adding more problems for 2B to consider, therefore making her weaker. So I think this matchup's pretty solid for Xianghua. And last up for positive matchups, it would be Yoshi. So Yoshi, the truth is, I think Yoshi and Xianghua play a very similar game. I think that when you're watching the Yoshi versus Xianghua game, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff. Um, the only reason I have this at 6-4, the only reason, is the fact that she can deal with Indian stance, or med as some people call it, and Dragonfly better than most anybody. And the reason why is Indian stance, depending on what he's doing to go into it, she can either crouch throw and beat every single option other than going from Indian stance straight into Dragonfly stance, or to beat every single option, including raw block and teleports and Dragonfly and flee and forgive me. Uh, she can 4A, and it beats every single option, including teleports. So 4A and crouch throw into med completely just nullify med, or again, they add that extra layer that Yoshi didn't need to worry about before. And it deletes one of his best options, Med K. Med K is a fantastic tool, it's a fantastic move, and Xianghua just deletes its existence. Plus with Dragonfly, 5A beats out every single move in Dragonfly, or trades in the case of Dragonfly A. And it only loses to Dragonfly A plus B. Again, if you know that and he knows that, you're adding an extra layer, right? So specifically with the Med K is the only reason why I have him here at 6.4. If I wanted to add more decimal points, I would put this as a 5.5 and 4.5, and he'd be the only one. But I don't have that, and I don't think it's even because of that. Therefore, I think it's 6.4. And in general, too, Yoshi's just more punishable than Xianghua, and so if Xianghua plays a very slow, safe game, the Yoshi is inevitably going to kill himself, both figuratively and literally. Um, so there's always that as well. For 5.5s, we have Baldo, Killick, Rugi, Raf, Siegfried, Cervantes, Taki. So Valdo, I think if Valdo's trying to pressure with Mantis, Xianghua wins. If he's playing a slower, more keep out neutral game, he wins. And so really it depends on the Valdo player's style. Plus his front facing CE is very frustrating because it backsteps pretty much the entire. I know this is not a lot, like I know this is the case for a lot of the cast, but Xianghua just gets deleted by it, and there's nothing she can do about it. Um, because of her range, right? So that's a big deal. And then his back turn CE can contest her frames, which is also quite annoying in general. But his buttons, they have pretty solid range. He's got a ton of horizontal mids to work with. 4K or 44K, whatever the input is, the kick up launcher is actually a big deal for him. In the matchup, as it is a very, very fast tech crouch, and so you can call out the Xianghua big time and boot her in the air for that. So I think it's an even matchup. It can go either way. Valdo's feel like it's in Xianghua's favor. Xianghua players feel like it's in Valdo's favor. I think it's in neither's favor, and I think that both players just need to approach the matchup a little differently. In that Valdo needs to play slow and fundamental, and Xianghua needs to try to stay in his face as best she can, um, and deal with Mantis every time. Killick, I think this is a really dry matchup. His keep out game is it's okay. It's not great. So I don't know. It's a lot of poking. It's a lot of poking, a lot of whiff punishing. Um, they both have tools to deal with each other. Um, I think this is like about as even as it gets. In terms of all the 5.5s, I think the Killick matchup is as even as it gets, personally, in my opinion. Um, I don't really know what to say about it other than just learn the matchup a little bit, know what to auto GI and what to step, and how to deal with his soul charge. Um, yeah, I think it's a pretty solid matchup, and it really just comes down to skill. The Rugi matchup is kind of the same as Killick. However, Xianghua does have tools to deal with Rugi, but Rugi has tools to deal with her, and that's kind of the trend of the 5.5s in general. So Rugi, what Xianghua can do is she can actually crouch throw the 1BB on hit as it's -10, and in a crouch state. So normally Rugi players can toss that out for a bit of free damage. Um, but against Xianghua, you are taking a massive risk in using 1BB. So we kind of neutralize that tool. The other thing with Rugi is that he has some transitions that are -12, so we can CE it. And so there's that, but in his case, he's got buttons to keep us out and away. He can handle us pretty well at range. His whiff punishes are pretty quick. So he can actually whiff punish Xianghua, where a lot of characters struggle to do so. Um, I think it's a pretty good matchup for both characters if they know, like if you know about the matchup, it could go either way. But if the Rugi player doesn't know what the Xianghua can do to him, uh, he's going to get dumpstered. Um, so yeah, I think it's a pretty even matchup. Raf, Raf right now is in a pretty solid state, and in season 2, they gave him a means of dealing with counterplay to his stances, or rather his preparation stance. However, I still think that it's pretty even, and the reason being is that you can crouch throw, shadow evade, you can CE a lot of spots in preparation, and again, 6A plus B is huge because if you can force a Raph to use his horizontals, you've already won, right? So that's huge. And it forces him to play a prep game because if you're 6A plus Bing all the time, then, and he can't just use his horizontals in neutral all the time, then he's relegated to using preparation. And if he's using preparation, then he's risking a lot more because we're Xianghua, the auto GIs. The auto GIs are going to beat out the A or the B, right? And then they're going to beat out sometimes the parry, they're going to beat out the AG, they're going to beat out the shadow evade, right? So he has to take a lot more risks and he has to commit to his offense against Xianghua. Um, so yeah, I think it's a pretty even matchup both ways. I think I think this is one of the only characters on the list that I'd be willing to shift around. And if anything, I would put it into the 4-6 category because of his range and whiff punish. But right now, I'm not confident in doing that. I think it's a straight 5-5. Siegfried. So Siegfried is another one of those matchups where a lot of people are probably going to argue with me, and they're going to say that it's bad for Xianghua. I disagree. I think that Siegfried just cannot deal with Xianghua up close at all. He has to either make the read with base hold, just raw base hold, or get a lucky A slide B. So there's that. The other thing is his keep out game, while good, it's slow. And so if you're paying attention, Xianghua can get in quite easily. The other thing is that because of her stature and her hitbox, you can actually duck 3A4 at some ranges, which is one of his best buttons. The other thing is he or she can punish his stance game quite heavily with an I-12 CE because sometimes the side spin isn't actually fast enough to parry or evade the CE, so that's a big deal. The other thing is Crybaby. So there are times where, especially if he's Dark Legacy, Siegfried's can set you up in a way that it's a Oki 50-50 in a sense. Like the low kick isn't going to hit you grounded, but you might take the B, which is hella damage. Or he might transition into another stance, right? Or if you get up, you're in a 50-50, but Crybaby deletes it. Because if you Crybaby him and he's in stance, he goes back into neutral stance. So you're kind of omitting that factor a little bit. Um, but in general, they have tools to deal with each other. But I do think that it can go either way. I think Xianghua does fine against Siegfried. I've been doing fine against Siegfried since even the beginning of season one. I've never had a problem with the matchup, even against like the really good players. Um, so I think this is a 5-5. It can go either way. If Xianghua is in his face, it's in her favor. If he's getting his offense going with stances or getting really good hits in neutral, it's in his favor. So it could go either way. Cervantes. Previously, I thought Cervantes was a bad matchup for Xianghua, but I've actually learned a lot about this matchup, especially as of late, at least at the time of this video. And I've learned to, I guess, deal with his mid-range better than I ever have before. And pair, the way to do that is you really want to be sidestepping and using a lot of 4A in neutral. Um, in general, Xianghua can punish Cervantes quite hard. Some of his best moves are -12 to -14. So of course you have CE. Um, I think it can go either way. Like when she's in his face, they're playing the same game. The difference is that Xianghua just has better frame data, but Cervantes hits a little harder and has more Hora mids, right? Um, Yeah, I think this one goes either way. This is kind of like Kalik and Rugi. They both have tools to counter each other. I think it's a pretty good matchup for both, or it can be, depending on the matchup knowledge, rather. And honestly, against Cervantes, there's not that many AGI spots compared to a lot of the cast, actually. And again, you'll notice with the 5-5 characters, I'm not really mentioning the auto GIs that much other than Raph. And that's because you kind of have to play more solid caliber against these characters, and you just have to deal with it. So yeah, I think Cervantes is fine. I think it's an even matchup. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not going to say I like it, but I think it's even. Taki is the last to round out our 5-5 category. Previously, I thought this was in Xianghua's favor, but the more digging I did, the more Takis I played, the more I'm starting to realize that Xianghua's existence kind of gets rid of one of Taki's biggest weaknesses, and that is we cannot keep her out of our face ever. This is not something we can really do. Um, so that in conjunction with 668 plus B from Taki means that she can get in no problem against Xianghua. It's no problem. So that's not really there. The other reason why I thought this was in favor of Xianghua at first was because of crouch throw. And what I mean by that is she has a ton of tech crouching moves. So you can literally throw out tech crouch in neutral and still grab Takis, which is hilarious. Um, but I realize that that's just a big risk, and so I'm not really factoring that part in. Um, yeah. Now, what Xianghua can do to deal with Taki is a lot of the wind roll transitions. You can crouch through them and completely catch them out of the roll. Taki's get up, like the wake up B plus K, where she flies in the air and it does hella damage. You can crouch throw that as well. You can crouch throw her 4B, you can crouch throw her 3B, you can crouch throw her A plus B. There's just a lot of good buttons that you're going to see a lot, and so you can actually get the Taki to stop using them or to chill out if they don't know the matchup. If they do know the matchup, they're going to not use them as much. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. So there's that. And Taki, what Taki can do to Xianghua is she can take advantage of the fact she has a move that is, like faster than I-12. So, and I forgot to mention this with Raf as well, but you can't use moves like full crouch 3B as Xianghua, B minus 8, and then use an auto GI against characters with I-10s or faster. And the reason why is because it's not real. It's not going to auto GI fast enough. Um, so you kind of have to factor that in. So any character with an I-10, it's not real tech, whereas any other character, it is somewhat real tech that you can flex. But you can't do that against Raf. Or Taki or Yoshi and Amy, obviously, but um, different characters. I think the Taki matchups even like I think again it kind of can go either way. I think that the amount of tech crouches Taki has are a big deal. It forces us to use a lot more 5B, 3K, 2A, 3A, as opposed to our 5A and 4B and 6A, right? So that kind of limits our kit a little bit. And again, you're getting rid of the weakness of getting in and having stubby range for both of us, granted. But I think Taki is just a little more reliant on that weakness, if that makes sense. Like if you took that weakness away from Taki, all of a sudden she's a much better character. Now, obviously, she has problems, right? I'm not saying that this isn't a tier list discussion right now, but strictly speaking, I think it's 5-5. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Um, yeah, so that's it for 5-5. 4-6. 4-6s got Ivy, Geralt, as well, Hilda, Mina. So this tier was actually the hardest one for me to make in general. And the reason why is because I had thought that Mina was the tier below, but I have evidence to prove otherwise. So this is my 4-6. So what you're going to find with these matchups is they can just deal with Xianghua at range very well, right? So let's start with Ivy. Ivy, everyone knows about Ivy, right? Doesn't really need to get into much. However, it's not the worst matchup for Xianghua, contrary to popular belief. And part of the reason why is she's quite negative on a lot of her stuff. So Xianghua can take her turns quite often. I don't think I have any problems getting in against an Ivy. Um, but Ivy is still Ivy at the end of the day. What really makes this a 4-6 though, apart from everything else, is the Christmas tree. So Christmas tree, in case you guys don't know, is her while rising B plus K, and she's able to move forward or backwards a little bit while she's doing it. The move auto GIs every kind of move, or rather, it GIs every kind of move, but it's not an ARI. And it's a 2-hit move as well, and it's minus, I think it was minus anywhere from minus 14 to minus 18 or something like that. The problem with the move is that some characters can punish it and some characters can't. And Xianghua can't with any button that she has, assuming the Ivy moves backwards. So sure, Xianghua gets to run in, but she might be running into a CS, right? Or an SS, the throws. And so that's actually a big deal in the matchup. Like it's a big deal because that move not only pushes us away, but it could auto GI our offense, and we cannot punish it, so there is no risk. Whereas some characters can, so there's a little bit of risk. Uh, but Xianghua cannot punish it, and it's huge. It sucks. Um, and in general, a lot of Ivy's buttons just kind of shove us out in general. So we have to kind of play at that 2A plus G range or that maximum CS range. So that can bode quite difficult for Xianghua to deal with. Definitely not unwinnable. Personally, I don't really have much trouble against Ivy. Again, aside from Christmas Tree. So I think it can go either way, but I do think it is a little bit in Ivy's favor. And it's not because of her zoning. I don't think her zoning is actually that strong, to be honest with you. Um, because what Xianghua does have in the matchup is her I-12CE, but then also Crybaby. So a lot of characters have to just kind of deal with Ivy's Oki, right? Either the low kick or like the launcher or the throw or whatever. Xianghua doesn't have to deal with it. If you Crybaby, you're gonna eat the 1K, assuming they do the 1K. But then if you Crybaby again, you're gonna hit them and you can get up for free. So I'll take that 1K all day, right? Um, and avoid getting up into an unbreakable throw, right? So that's a really big deal in the matchup, and Xianghua can take full advantage of that. Geralt. Geralt is, um, again, if I like Yoshi, if I had more decimal points here, this would be a 4.5 to 5.5. But I don't have that, so Geralt really can go either way, as a lot of his stuff is punishable by Xianghua, of course. However, if he plays a very safe, boring game, it is so hard for her to deal with because he has a horizontal mid via 3A. Very good, very quick. And his 5AA and his 5BB have so much range that 5AA on block, Xianghua literally whiffs majority of her pokes. Literally. I cannot 5A you or I can't 6A you after blocking Geralt's 5AA. Like, it sucks. So it's so hard for Xianghua to get anything going against this character, and you kind of just have to take every punish and whiff that you can get. Like that's really what it comes down to, is that Geralt can play basic, boring, and just really delete a lot of Xianghua's game plan, and it sucks. It really sucks, and that's really all it is. That's all it comes down to. Sure, like Xianghua can punish Geralt, but she can punish every character, right? So that's not special. Um, but Geralt can just play basic, boring, and keep Xianghua out all day, and it's very frustrating because there's nothing you can do about it. It's literally just block stun. That's all it is. It push back. So I think the matchup is slightly in Geralt's favor, but again, if I had more decimals, it would be so close to 5-5. But I don't. That's all I have to say on that. Aswell is still Aswell. He does Aswell things. The only problem with this matchup, like to put it to you simply, the only problem with this matchup is very much the same as Geralt. It's just the size of their buttons and the amount of space they control. That's all it is. And Crybaby can kind of omit the axe pressure because if he goes to backstep Crybaby and you back tech or you side tech, you're going to avoid 3B. And if he goes for X low to catch your side tech, you're only going to get hit by the tipper. And so he's unequipped, minus on hit, and it's like no damage. So Crybaby is very powerful against Aswell. So it's not his axe Oki isn't really there as much as it is every other character. But it's the size of his buttons. Like 6B, 3A, and then 5A and 5B are so difficult for Xianghua to deal with. Very much in the same boat as Geralt. Same reasons apply really. So you can struggle against them for the same reasons, and it's totally understandable. It's just hard for Xianghua to deal with that kind of keep out game. Um, yeah, I think Geralt's a little better at that, but I think Aswell just has more strength in general. So it kind of makes up for that as well. Ha. Moving on to Hilde. Hilde it could definitely move to 5-5. I think you can make an argument for that. But right now, I do think it's a bit of a 4-6. And the reason why is her kicks are so strong and she has a ton of hori mids. And that's a big deal. If you can start flexing a lot of horizontal mid attacks against Xianghua, That's huge. So now 2-2B loses value, 4-4A loses value, full crouch 3B, full crouch 3A, all of that, it just loses value, and it sucks. So that's that. And then her kick attacks make me never really want to auto GI in neutral because they're so good. Like they're very powerful kicks. I would argue as a character, she's got the best kick attacks in the game, um, in terms of their applicability and versatility. So that's hella good. Um, yeah, like she has a ton of strings that are auto GIable, sure, or GIable, yes, but you don't need to use those in the matchup at all. You do not need to use them. Um, And of course, at the mid range, she has the spears you have to worry about. And then when you think you've avoided a spear and you run in, then you get hit by a charge A5, and it's like, oh, okay, behold, okay, behold, okay, shit. So I think Hilda has a lot of counter Xianghua tools, and she doesn't need to play an auto GIable game. Um, so you just have to take it slow and defensive, and I think Hilda does pretty well against Xianghua in general. Mina, like I said, I had the tier below. I had her in the tier below, but I've come to realize that you can deal with Mina just fine, and it's more about the player. So to get in against Mina, basically you want to walk in with either sidestep or 3 or 9 directions, and then duck the 6As and step the 1Bs, 6Bs, and 6Bs. Easier said than done, of course, and quite tricky to do online, but doable. And when you're in Mina's face, you really just need to go ham. You gotta do your frame traps. You have to set up your mix-ups. You have to make the hard reads. You have to turn it up when you're in Mina's face and take every opportunity you can to deal with it. Um, yeah, I think it's rough though. Like I would be willing to put her down in the tier below. However, personally, and so this one's a bit of another personal matchup thing. There has only ever been consistently anyway, one Mina player who has ever completely just I felt nullified and I felt useless in the matchup, and that was Lolo, who is a very fantastic player who now mains Mina. He has a Yoshi on the side as well, and he is the Mina who can deal with me. Every other Mina I played against, I get in on them just fine, and I can deal with their stuff just fine. Sure, I lose some guard gauge, but that's just the way Mina is, right? You just have to hold that. But Lolo has a very powerful way of playing Mina, and so I felt like I was biased in that I don't think the matchup is as bad as it made it seem, but he's one of the only Minas that really showed me her power. So I don't think it's as bad as I previously thought it was. Um, but it's still a rough life. It's still a rough life. So if you wanted to argue with me and say that Mina was 3-7, I could agree with you, but I don't think there's such a thing in Soul Calibur, as when you're in Mina's face, it's Xianghua's game all day long. You just have to flex a few more kicks because of the auto GIs, right? So kicks like 6K is one of my favorites. 6K is okay. 4K to check the step. Um, and then 2K as well. Her Xianghua's 2K is actually quite good. It has a super tech crouch property and it's got decent range. So that's an option as well. So that does it for my 4-6. And last but not least, so obviously we don't know anything about Haomaru and Inferno yet, so they don't count. Um, last is Sophie and Tira. So I I don't think anyone's gonna agree with me on this one. I think this one is gonna require some explanation. So I've played both these characters, for the record. And sure, you're probably gonna tell me right out of the gate, but Zedd, some of their best moves are -12 and -14. And yeah, you're right. But so are Xianghua's. The other thing is you have to consider, and I forgot to mention this with Ivy, but movement. So Ivy, Sophidia, and Tira have some of the best, if not the best backsteps in the game. Um, and Xianghua is very vulnerable to backstep. So much so that if your backstep is large enough and you're at like range 1, I can't even reach you with 6B in time before you can either block or sidestep. And if you sidestep at that range and you step to 6B, the 6BA is not going to hit you. And if I do 6BB, it's too slow and you're going to step it. So that's a big deal. Um, That was loud. The other thing is, so let's just talk about Sophie, I guess, first. Sophie has I-14 stab. So I-14 stab means that I don't really want to use 6A plus B. Now, granted, in that matchup, I don't really want to anyway. Her verticals, while good, they're not like a crutch. If anything, I would say her kicks and horizontals are actually better than her verticals, just one for one. Um, so it's not a button I want to use often, but the point is, I never want to use it, right? Because if I'm wrong, then I'm eating a stab for free. Tira, same boat. Gloomy Tira is actually kind of a bigger problem, but we'll get there. Sophidia, quite literally against Xianghua, can do something in the realm of run up, 1k counter hit, backstep, sidestep, like move around, run up, 2a counter hit, backstep, move around. 6-6a in, hit me, 1k, backstep. Like, she just does a poke or two, backstep. A poke or two, backstep. And if I whiff, stab, stab, stab. And so it's just really hard for Xianghua to handle a very mobile Sophidia. Um, it's really hard. And this one might also be a little skewed. The only Sophidia to ever cause me trouble has been Sephukai's, and he's very aggressive, and I think he plays the matchup perfectly. So this one might be a little skewed. Um, if you feel like I'm overstating it, then sure, I could agree that Sophidia could be behind Mina, but I don't think so. I think that there's just a lack of Sophie players and a lack of understanding. But having played Sophidia myself and actually done this exact same strategy against other Xianghuas, and I'm not even like that good at Sophidia, imagine if I was, or imagine Sefukai. They're going to be able to absolutely destroy Xianghua um, in this matchup. So I think this matchup sucks. It is easily top three worst matchups for Xianghua, even though it may not seem like it. If you think about like bad matchups for Xianghua, it probably doesn't come to mind, but it is, and it sucks. It sucks big time. Um, so yeah, that's Sophie. She just it has to be annoying and move around a lot, and she will beat you. Moving on to Tira, very much the same boat, right? Tira can just wait for you at range and just taunt you, so you have to go in. And when you try to go in, she's gonna just keep you out with moves like Jolly 2-2B, um, or a bunch of gloomy buttons. Um, Jolly B4 and Jolly 1B are actually quite good in the matchup. Um, yes, Jolly's mid horizontals are punishable. That's true, but so are Sophidia's, and both of them don't even really need to use them. If you have patience and good movement with both of those characters, you can absolutely destroy Xianghua. Or, at the very least, with both these characters, what they force Xianghua to do is they, much like Geralt, is they force her to run in for her turn, and that is her turn, and that sucks. It sucks to move as your turn, but that's just the reality of these matchups. The other thing that Tira actually has over Sophitia, granted, Sophitia is a bit of a stronger character in my opinion, but I think strictly speaking matchups, Tira is Xianghua's worst matchup, and the reason why is because of the fact that she not only has a fantastic backstep and keep out buttons with no risk, but she also can just deal tons of damage very easily. And her I-14 punish is in the same mode that I want to use a lot of 6A plus B. So 6A plus B is quite strong against Gloomy. Tira's 3B is also a tech crouch. So it's very easy for her to land that against Xianghua, who, again, to maintain a good offense, needs to be using highs. So if I try to call that out, and I'm wrong, and I'm minus 14, then she's going to use 3AA plus B or 3AA, whatever the situation says. And literally, I've now given her either a free personality swap, wall combo, ring out, hella damage. Like, depending on what she does, she could get all three even, right? So again, movement and patience are key. Granted, if you look at this flowchart, right? Let's look at the data. So that's my thoughts on Xianghua's matchups. We obviously Haomaru's not out yet, and Inferno doesn't count. So let's look at this flowchart. We have 7. I only think there are 7 bad matchups for Xianghua. That's really good. Like I think Xianghua has the tools to deal with everyone. The thing is, and you may have noticed this with the 5/5s and up, is it really comes down to your matchup knowledge with Xianghua. Like you have to know how to use those evasive buttons that she has, where to stuff her I-10s, where to use the I-12s, and how to use the auto GIs. You must know how to do that. Yes, you can play a basic Xianghua game. Totally. You totally can. You can use her safe launchers. You can use her low pokes. You can totally do that, but your defense just isn't going to be there. And you won't be able to keep up in guard damage or actual damage if you don't know how to execute these different defensive mechanics. It's still doable, but it's just hard. And I think that using all of her kit is what makes these matchups so good. And the spread here is what, 10, 15, 17. 17 of the 24 cast members are either even or lose to Xianghua, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, and I think the unfortunate reality though is if you look at the ones that Xianghua is not great against, you're going to notice a lot of really good characters as well. Ivy, Mina, Geralt, Sophidia, they're all very powerful characters. So she has a little bit of a hard time dealing with kind of the upper echelon of the tier list, at least in the game's current state. But whether the characters were good or bad, the tools remain the same, the options remain the same, and that's why I'm more confident in publishing this now than ever, now that I know more about the matchups. And it wouldn't matter if they nerfed like good buttons on any of these characters. They would have to fundamentally nerf like movement, which they did, I think, twice ever, as well being one of them. Or they would have to completely revamp how some of these interactions with stances and strings work. For example, making strings tighter on block or jail, right? That kind of thing that can tweak it a little bit, but not much. So this is my matchup tier list, or rather matchup tier list for Xianghua. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you disagree with me, tell me why. Don't just be like, I disagree with your list. Tell me why, because I don't really care about fragile, stingy statements like that. I want to get into a conversation with you because maybe I'm not considering things, or maybe you're not considering things, right? I'm open to discussion, and of course, this is built around my experiences as well. So if I personally feel like Zas is really good, Xianghua's good against Zas. I know a lot of Xianghua players don't agree with me there, but I don't really care. I like maybe they're not playing it properly. I don't know, right? But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good rest of your day.